just knowing that if I ever needed anything, he was going to be there.
The foundation of how to be a man is the biggest lesson that he gave me.
It's a hard one talking about my relationship with my dad.
No matter about what you guys are going through, man, it's your dad's your dad. You only get one of those.
The thing that was imprinted upon me was to be there for my kids.
I just feel like every man should have his father around.
But he was right there and just made me feel better and made me feel that everything would be okay.
No matter how tired he was after construction, he'd always spend time with me after work. And now, being older, I know how hard that can be sometimes, being that tired. And you still put on a happy face and be a dad. That's what I remember.
My name is Joey Glenn Smith.
Rick Gilmore Jr.
Ryan Figures. Clifford Whitehorn.
Sean Dustin, a.k.a. Reflective Intelligence, R.I. of the Destructicons.
Corey Wright. Jermaine Virtue.
Io Taylor.
Joe Levy.
William Colston.
Mark Allen.
Amon.
Jim Ewell, 180 Johnson.
I didn't grow up with my father. I know he is, though.
I did grow up with my father. My parents divorced when I was 6, and so moved to Dallas, and single black mom, 4 children. I come from a biracial family, and then came back to California, back and forth between grades, and lived with my father out here in California as well.
Would you say you have a good relationship with your father now?
I have a great relationship with my father.
So when you think back to those times when you were growing up, and would you say you appreciated him back then?
Yeah, I appreciated him every step of the way. It was gut wrenching. Divorce tears up families, and so it was definitely difficult. Being away from my father. I mean, it's the person that taught you how to ride a bike and catch with a baseball glove and play pickle and took you to your baseball games and do all the things that good fathers do with their children. So it wasn't a matter of him not wanting to be there as much as a byproduct of broken families.
Did you grow up with your father?
Yes, I did. All my life, really. My parents are still together. They've been married going on 42 years now. And my dad's been there every day. Even now, I'm 35 years old, and my dad's still in my life, still giving me guidance.
Do you have any children?
I do not, that I know of. Growing up, I did not grow up with my father. He kind of was out of the picture when I was 3 years old. I've never even seen a picture of him. He could be in the room right now, and I wouldn't even know what he looks like. Father-son bond. Like, I'm never gonna know what that's like. I see it in movies and television, like the father being proud to go to his son's games and, just kind of giving him life lessons on women and sports and all that stuff I had to learn on my own. And I feel like I missed out greatly when I was a kid. And I do wish that I did have a father back then, and I think every kid should, because there's things that a father can teach a man that, a woman couldn't, a mother couldn't.
I have a boy and a girl. The boy's the eldest, he's 10 years old, and I have a girl and she's 6.
Growing up, did you grow up with your father?
I did.
What would you say is the most important lesson that you got from your dad?
Yeah, that's a tough question because I think he gave me many lessons. But I would say the foundation of how to be a man is the biggest lesson that he gave me.
What does be a man mean to you?
Being a man means a lot of things. It doesn't encompass one phrase or one thing. Being a man means being responsible, putting others before yourself, being selfless, taking responsibility of your own actions and your own causes, basically. That's what being a man means to me, and I think that's what I learned most from my father.
But I didn't grow up with him. So how do you think that affected you the most growing up, not having him with you? It could have played a bigger part of my role if
you know, he was there. Probably could have given more confidence. You know what I mean? Kind of give him more stability in a sense. But I mean, really, I can't tell you how it really affected me because I really don't know. He wasn't really there at all. You know what I mean? So I can't be like, you know, this is where I went wrong because he wasn't there. You know what I mean? So,
as an adult now, what do you think is what stands out the most is one of the things you think you missed out on? Like thinking back to
you know,
what I mean?
That father-son relationship. You know, playing sports and then looking over and seeing my dad and, you know, in the stands cheering me on. You know, that's a big part of growing up. You know what I mean? It's just having that man to talk to that's right there versus, you know, well, there's this guy here, there's this teacher here, or, you know, our mom's boyfriend, or, you know, our uncle, or our grandfather, or something like that, but they may not really understand where you're coming from because they're not your dad, you know what I'm saying? So,
did you grow up with your father?
No, I didn't. Unfortunately, I didn't. I had uncles who were there to kind of fulfill the father, you know, the father figure. I don't think that I really realized that there was a lacking until I got grown, and I had the desire to want to know who my father was.
What do you think triggered that? Like what?
I think that's just something that's natural. You get to an age where every child wants to know where they came from. It's just not enough to know. You know who your mom is, but there's a yearning desire that comes. You want to know where you come from. You just do. And I didn't think that would be, but it just began to really eat at me. You know, I had other brothers and sisters who knew who their dad was, but I felt like there was a lack in my life because I didn't know who my father was. You know, and I finally got a name in my 40s, and when I finally got a name, that meant like so much. Wow, my last name is Williams because I'm to understand his name is Williams. So it's something that parents should share with their children. You know, they need to know the truth. That's important.
At this point in your life now, what would you say is one of the biggest things you think you've missed by not growing up with your dad? What stands out to you?
Because I come from a tight-knit family, the only thing I can really think of out top would be financial support. I have a lot of uncles, aunts, cousins, so I never really missed the attention. I got a lot of one-on-one time with my uncles, so I can't even really say I didn't have a bond male to male. So I would just probably say I missed the financial support because I know my mom had to take on the burden all her own to support, you know, me and everything I was doing.
Okay. What would you probably say is one of the most important lessons your father taught you?
The most important lesson my father taught me is to be a hard worker. You know what I mean? Hard work, definitely, you know, you definitely get great reward for hard work. You know, teach me how to be a man, teach me how to be a businessman. You know, it's my third barbershop I've owned. I've been a barber for 14 years. My dad used to, you know, hook me up and get me started. And my own lawn business at 12 and help me out cutting yards for a living. That was my first job. Helped me set up a bank account at 12. You know how to manage money at 12. You know, he taught me to be a straight up man, you know. Be responsible. Be responsible for, you know, for anybody. You know what I mean? Your family, friends. You know, the most important thing he taught me though overall was just, you know, just to be a good man and do the best you can.
What would you say is one of the most important or more significant lessons that your father taught you?
Just putting your family first. I mean, no matter, just growing up, I remember my dad just, no matter whatever activity I was in, no matter how big, small the activity was, he was there for it. Every sport that I got into, he was my very first coach. I mean, he took me to the backyard, he threw the ball with me, he ran the plays with me, helped me memorize the plays when I was a quarterback, taught me how to dribble, taught me how to shoot. I mean, everything I could possibly imagine when it comes to sports, he was there for it. Takes me to the garage. We used to work on cars together. I could bleed your brakes. I could change the tires. I could, give your whole car a whole tune-up just because of my dad.
So when you think back to those memories of working on the car with him in the garage, or looking on the sidelines during the game, and seeing him there, or spending time with him, what type of feelings come to mind?
Well, I mean, it's the feelings that come to mind is like I can't wait to do it for my own son. That joy that he experienced. Dealing with all my firsts and my sister's first. I want to have those same experiences. I want to basically have his life.
I'll be honest with you, it's a very big deal to have that influence around you. Someone who has been there before, someone who has that connection with you. And it's just an awesome thing to be able to have someone to go to when you need that encouragement.
In your time growing up with your dad, what would you say is one of the most valuable lessons he taught you?
Maintenance, how to be a man, how to take care of things, how to fix a car. A lot of little stuff. A lot of little stuff adds up to a big amount, though. So he taught me a lot of little things. How to dribble a basketball. You know what I'm saying? Just a lot of sports stuff.
So when you think about the most, I don't want to say the most important, but what do you say is the most consistent lesson that your father ever taught you? Like that was just driven into you?
Your word has to be gold. Your handshake has to mean something. That's it. That's the main thing, is that if you say your word, then like the Allen name holds something. Like my dad, people know my dad as, the man that was always nice, always honest, always straightforward. He always help out. And if he gave you his word, then it was in stone. So I'm like that.
Okay.
Wow. A defining lesson that my dad taught me. I think the most important lesson I learned from my dad was really to trust God. My dad was flawed like every other human being. He's a pretty great dude, though. And but I think the most important lesson that he taught me was really to put my trust in God. That really there was nothing else worthy of my trust. And I think that was probably a very good lesson that I learned from him.
The biggest lesson I learned from my father was don't buy cheap. I learned to look for quality instead of buying something that's not going to last. So if I got to spend a little bit more and get something that's going to last, do that versus wasting money on something that's temporary. Instead of having a bunch of junk that keeps breaking, take your time, save up, buy it right.
What's the one thing you really remember taking away?
They're kind of both. They're probably two in one. It's integrity and work ethic. My dad's a person of very high integrity, which he kind of defines as doing the right thing if nobody's around, and being a person that treats people the correct way. Say what you mean and mean what you say. Stand by your word. Don't make false promises and things of that nature, and be a straight shooter. So being a person of high integrity, being accountable, for your mistakes, being a person of high integrity, and treating people the right way.
Well, my fondest memories, as a kid, he used to take me to ball games and, hang out and go out, even if it's just a drive up the street around the corner, you know what I mean? My dad always taught me to be thankful for what I have, thankful for what, as far as family and the family structure that I was fortunate to have and been blessed with, because a lot of my people was like family members, cousins, and people weren't fortunate to have a father in their life. So he wanted to make sure that I understood that and respected it. And The biggest moments is, you know, my dad was a musician. I'm a musician myself. You know, I play instruments and do all that stuff. And the things I think about was me and him, you know, doing music together and kind of vibing and, you know, doing our thing, you know. He kind of got a kick out of me doing music because he never forced that upon me, but, you know, it was in my blood. So, you know, I had no choice after a while because that's what I kind of like. So those are the moments that I cherish the most, man, is being with my dad doing music and him tripping out on me doing music because he got the biggest kick out of that, you know what I mean? 'Cause he used to show all his partners and stuff he grew up with, he used to playing my music and, you know, everybody kind of tripping out and, you know, that's the thing I like, you know, the things I remember about my dad that I really love, you know what I mean, with him.
Oh, barbershop.
I look forward to going to the barbershop with my dad. It was what I call male time, because not only was I with my father, but I was around other males. And it's one of the ways where I learned to emulate what we call masculinity. Watching my father's behavior, conduct, and emulating that really brought character to who I am as a man today.
He'd come home and I'd put on his work boots and they'd be all sweaty, and I'd put on his flannel shirt and I was in heaven. And then he'd go out front and throw the ball with me and stuff like that, still being tired. So I always think about that. When my son wants to play and I'm tired and don't feel like I want to play, I still will, because I know how that felt.
Well, sometimes when he was going to the motorcycle club, every so often he let me go with him. And there was one event in high school where he showed up to my wrestling meet during league championships. So, but outside of that, those were the two moments that stand out the most. And also, there was one that really stand out actually. Now that I go back, one time I was sick and I got to ride with. Wasn't just me and my dad, it was me, my dad, and my mom, and we went to IHOP, and I got to sit in the middle on a motorcycle, riding over to IHOP from the house.
Fishing. When I was a kid, my dad would come by sometimes, pick me up and take me deep sea fishing with him and his friends, and that was pretty exciting. I'd always end up going to the bottom of the boat and puking, but once I got over my seasickness, it was always fun to come up and catch fish with my dad.
I would have to say him being a coach, him being sports. He was there all the time with my sports, you know what I'm saying? He was also my coach. He didn't just be in the crowd cheering me on, he coached me, you know what I'm saying? He teach me things, he'd guide me, tell me what not to do compared to what to do in certain situations. You know, how to work. He showed me how to go to work every day. I'd never seen him be lazy, never seen him not take care of his business. He just, he taught me all these things by me sitting there watching him, and also him pulling me to the side and also telling me to look, this is what you have to do in order to be a man.
Oh, it's probably not like a crowning achievement type moment. It's probably the moment where you were a little kid, and you got bullied, and he would go defend you, or give you the courage to understand, like, hey, don't let this kid bully you. He's a man he's a kid just like you're a kid, and taking pride in yourself, that type of thing. So it wasn't really like a crowning achievement. Like some players, they win an NBA championship and they think about, hey, my dad shot 1 million jump shots with me. For me, it's not that. I mean, I have those moments too where maybe graduating college, but for me, it's the little things. The little things mean so much in life, They always add up to the total sum.
How old were you when you had your first child?
I was 23.
So you were 23 when you had the son or daughter?
My daughter.
Your daughter. When was the first day you knew I'm a dad?
When she popped, you want to know the whole story?
Yeah. Like I'm a father now, like I'm a dad. When did that first moment hit you?
Well, when she told me. But how, like how it happened when she told me was kind of like not the way you want to find out, because I was with another girl at the moment, got caught up, you know what I mean? And then next thing you know, kind of got a little squirrel, words were being thrown, this and that, and all of a sudden she said, well, I'm pregnant with your daughter, with your kid. I was like, whoa. You know what I mean? So that sunk in, you know what I mean? And I was like, okay. Well, now let me step up. As soon as I heard that, now let me step up now.
What did that mean to you hearing that?
Well, that means things are different now. Life is different now. It's not about myself anymore. Now I have a young seed here that's being created. Now I gotta do what I have to do to make sure that I set a solid foundation for them. You know what I mean? Because that was kind of like the first thing. Like, okay, now it's real life now. You know what I mean? It's not just sleeping in all day. You know what I mean? And do whatever you want to do, go out all night, whatever, stay up in the morning, all that stuff. Now you got responsibilities. So that was pretty much what I thought in my mind. Like, okay, now it's time to really get in gear now.
Sometimes you reflect back of how you've been raised. And sometimes you see certain situations that pop up in, you know, what your spouse does in relation to your child. And there was a situation with Naeem. Naeem is a Virgo like I am. And Virgos tend to be, some people say we're OCD because we're organizers. We like to have things in place. And I've always been, in my childhood, very organized and clean. Naeem has a lot of that characteristics and trait in him that I definitely see that not only is he my son, but I'm his father. We have a lot of those characteristics.
When you think back to what was the defining moment, like when you were just like, I'm a dad?
Ooh, when my oldest son collapsed in my arms at 18 months old, and I knew he was really, really sick and hurt, and I couldn't do anything to help him other than try to help him and get him help. And boy, I tell you, that feeling of helplessness and utter despair, and really only being able to lean on my faith and prayer, that really let me know what being a father was really all about. I don't wish that on anybody, but I tell you what, that's really when I knew that, man, there was nothing I wouldn't give to see my child whole.
It's cemented the first day at the hospital when I held him, the first day he was born. I know I have a responsibility. This is my son, and he has my name. So it was really clear. This is my connection.
Well, I was there when my daughter came out. I seen her come out. You know what I mean? And that was one of the most amazing experiences I've experienced. For the simple fact that when she came out, she was wide-eyed, wide open, ready, like she looked like she was like, oh, I'm ready for life.
When my son first came out, I remember for months and months I had been doing these video recordings when the mom would be asleep, and I'd set up the little tripod and put the camcorder on, because I bought a camcorder knowing I was going to have a child, and I'd have these discussions, say, hey son, I can't wait till you come out, I don't know what you're going to look like, and I just hope you're healthy, and all of this stuff. And I remember talking to the belly and all of that stuff. And when my son came out, and I was like, son, this and this and this, and his head turned, and he looked at me, and it was like, whoa, like, you know exactly who I am. You know this voice. You know who I am automatically. Like, even though you can't convey that or communicate that, you know exactly who I am. And that made me tear up. It made me feel overwhelmed. It gave me goosebumps. It was like, wow. It was a wow moment. It was intimate. We both knew what was going on without having to communicate.
When he was born, his mother had a rare blood, so they were going to do a blood transfusion on him if he had her Rh negative blood. So for 4 hours, I had him, because she passed out from all the epidurals and the drugs she took to have him. And then for 4 hours, I was with him with his first bath, cousin umbilical cord, first bath. They pulled his blood, he cried. And then for 4 hours, we just sat waiting for the results of if he was going to have a blood transfusion, which was a big deal you know, that was going to be serious. And then when it came back, we had my blood. It was all good. So that 4 hours, me and him really bonded, like what a mother normally would have that time. It was just me and him, and I held him really close, and you know, realized, wow, I remember I cried a lot. I was like, I'm someone's dad.
That's a good question. I would say the day he was born. You know, because you know you go to all the prenatal doctor appointments, but reality comes the day he was born, meaning my eldest child Jackson. So it was more tangible. You could see him, you could touch him, you know, all the surreal moments, you know, but it was tangible at that point. So the day he was born.
So, you know, I'll tell you, try to embrace your dad, man, as much as you can, man, and talk to him, man, and have that relationship with him, man, because once it's gone, man. You're going to miss that. Whether you realize it not right now, I know you're young, but, you know, when you get older, man, you're going to start reflecting on that stuff, man, because, like I said, man, you know, enjoy them while they're here, though, man. That's the best advice I can give anybody, man.
When you think back to your childhood, your earlier days, is there one defining moment, like maybe a class trip or a school event or a family event, to where it really sunk in your head that him not being there was an issue? Like,
a lot of the times it was parent-teacher conferences and Father's Day and those kind of things. When I was younger, really had a bigger effect on me because I would see all the other kids and they would have mommy and daddy there, and I would just have my mom if she showed up. So when I was a kid, those were probably the biggest issues I had, just not being like the rest of the kids and feel like I didn't fit in.
Were there some moments where you remember growing up where you're like, man, I wish my dad was here for this? Or
probably more in the athletic aspect, because I did grow up playing a lot of sports. My family is sports oriented, so I would say, as far as you know, you go to games, everybody's fathers is there to pick them up, or you go to award benefits and their fathers are there to greet them, and you know, I didn't have nothing like that. So I guess that would be one thing that I'd say I missed out on or wasn't always able to receive. My mom would come, but it's just not the same. Definitely not the same.
There's a lot of things, you know, there's really a lot of things I probably missed out on not having a father, you know, around all the time like that. But
It even happened with my little brother. We don't have the same dad, and he took off, and my brother turned out he got into a lot of trouble. I think could have helped my brother out a lot.
But can't nobody teach a child how to be a man but his father. You know, so we can't take that away. You know, that's very important, especially in the African American culture.
With growing up without him and saying not even having a picture, if you had the opportunity to speak to him now, to get your 30 plus years off your chest, what do you think would be the first sentence out of your mouth?
Ooh, that's a good question. Maybe just why? Why would you leave my mom and a kid just out to fend for themselves? I don't have a lot of anger for him. I've never met the guy, and you know, I'm assuming he did what he had to do, but he knows that I'm out there and hasn't tried to make an effort to find me or know what I'm up to or doing. I mean, I think that's just not a man. So I mean, maybe it's for the best that he wasn't around. If these are the qualities that he portrays, then I don't really want nothing to do with him.
You have a pretty good peaceful take on it. Is that something that took time to get to, or is that something that you kind of always had?
That's something that I've always had. I've never had anger out for blood or mad at why wasn't he ever here? Why did he leave? Like I said, I love my mom. She did a wonderful job. So my feelings behind it is like you can't miss something that you never had. So.
So as you now have shifted into adulthood, and typically when you think about what your parents do for you, you think of as a small child. What are some of the lessons or the tools or the gems or jewels does your father still drop on you and still give to you now?
I know this much. Every time I come across an issue or a problem, I know I can go to my dad. I mean, I know I can call him up and say, hey Dad, this is what I'm dealing with, and he's going to at least give me something. He's going to talk me down, talk me through it. I may not use the advice that he gives me, but I know the advice he gives me is going to be sound. It's going to come from a humble place. It's going to come from the right place, and he doesn't have alternative motives. He's there just to make sure I'm happy and I'm safe and things work out well for me.
Well, he still reinforces those. he didn't stop reinforcing those, but he talks about ways about things that he learned as a father, that having a different approach with different children, and you can't just have a carte blanche, cookie cutter way of dealing with your children. He talks about maintaining relationships, the value of good friendships, and weeding out those that are not good friendships. Work ethic, about doing the best at your job and putting forth a good 8 hours of work, and making sure that you have a good relationship with your subordinates and your superiors and your peers, and basically maintaining positive relationships.
It's kind of funny because there's nothing new. It's all the same. It's just different levels and stages of what he's actually teaching you from day one. So it's the same thing, it's just at a higher level.
Women.
Mine's a little different. Like, now that I'm older, I wish my parents wouldn't have sugarcoated things like I don't. My parents always kind of tried to sugarcoat things and make things seem they weren't as bad as they were, so that when I got out to the world, I was like, wow, it was such a shock. So with my children, I didn't sugarcoat it. I was like, this is the way it is. Like, raising a daughter was different for me because I was still so young, but I was honest with her. This is the way guys are going to come at you. This is the way the world's going to treat you. This is the way it is. And so, she went on to be a Marine, so she's kind of hard too. So I want all my kids to know it's tough out there, so you have to be ready, So I didn't sugarcoat things like my parents did.
I think I learned what more not to do. Than what to do. The thing I can say about my dad is that, he lived a good example when we were around him. He wasn't a person that drank or smoked or used profanity or that anything. He was a hardworking guy, and he did the best he could do to go out and earn. He was a great provider, and that meant a lot because that was where we all got our stability from. But there's a lot of things that you don't want to do when you're dealing with kids, and you got to treat each one like an individual. And so there were many things I learned from my dad, and there were many things that I wish I could have learned from him.
What do you think will be one of the moments that you will miss most that he won't be there for?
Seeing my kids actually finally, seeing what they look like, seeing their mannerism, they're probably going to act like him. They'll probably be musicians or something like that, or something that he probably would get a kick out of, Just basically just seeing them grow up and seeing me being a father. I think that's what he probably got a kick out of most, because, he taught me all the things I know now, and when that time comes, I'll be prepared to do what I need to do as a father and be there for my family. Straight up. And I think that's what you get a kick out of most. No doubt.
Relationship, a father-son relationship. Like, if you were going to title that like a movie title or a song title, one that already exists or one that you create yourself, what does that father-son bond, like what would that title be to you? Think about you and your son or you and your dad, like that feeling. What would you put a title to that?
You're up next. I mean, really, my son is part of a line. All sons are part of a line, and we have an obligation to fulfill, and he would be up next to fulfill that obligation.
Transition. Transitioning from being a father to teaching a father.
Oh, that's tough. I mean, I got to be very creative with this. I would say a joyous road that never ends.
I want to be just like Dad. He covers it all. But for a kid to say, a boy, to say, I want to be like Dad, or even a daughter, I want a man like Dad. That's big. That's a big deal to me.
I guess this father and son, man, I can't think of nothing special or nothing that's like in like that speaks like us only, but just that father bond between the father and son, There's nothing, you can't put a different image on that or a different name on that. It's just father and son, you know what I'm
saying? You're gonna laugh. Freemasonry. That's the only thing I can come up in my head. Freemasonry. It's a fraternal organization. It's men helping raise men. It's usually passed on from father to son. I mean, that's the best way I can describe it by title.
I would title it the most important thing you've ever done. Yeah, I title it that. The most important thing you've ever done, or the most important thing you can ever do.
I think I would title it Fatherhood, a lifelong journey. Yeah, because that's exactly what it is. You never stop being a father. You just I don't care how old you get. My dad is 70 years old. He still talks to me like I'm 11 sometimes. I have to remind him, man, hey, I'm grown, Pop. He's never gonna, you never stop my kids, You don't lose that. So there it is. You never stop feeling that. When I look at my kids, I will always see that little 6 pounds of flesh that I held in my arms. That's what I see when I look at them.
What's one thing you would like him to know you got from him? Like, what's something like, just if there's one thing I want my dad to know I got from him, it's this.
The one thing for me is I want him to know that I have a lot of his traits implemented in me. And, you see us standing side by side, we might look like two completely different people. We have a lot of similar interests, but, you wouldn't think if we stood side by side that we were so similar. But I think I would want him to know that we're a lot more similar than maybe he realizes. And I see that with age, At some point, it's like I've always wanted to juxtapose my life with his life and see, at age 20, where am I compared to where he was? At age 30, where was I compared to where he was? And I think there's a lot of similarities. We had our kids about the same ages, our careers are progressing at about the same times. And, there's a lot of similarities. So I would want him to know that we're very similar, even though externally we may seem like really different, if that makes any sense.
That's a tough one. That one is a tough one. Be there. Not necessarily in a good way, because I know how I felt when he wasn't there. So the thing that was imprinted upon me was to be there for my kids. Show up to events, take that time. I would have to say that's the biggest thing, because it's weird being in sports and looking up in those stands and you see mom and you're like, where's dad? He live in a house, but you don't feel like it's important enough for him to show up to those events. So one of the biggest things I've learned is to be there, to show up.
That he raised a good man, because that's important for me with my kids. I want them to have all my good and none of my bad. So I'm sure that's what he wants. So I want him to know that he raised a good man that is part of society. I've served this country. I'm a part of a good thing. Not that boy. I don't want that feeling. I have some cousins like that. So I want him to know that he raised a good man, because I think it's a big deal for a parent to see their kid as an adult. My mother sees me as her kid still sometime, and I'm almost 50. But that's old. She's old school from the South. I let my son know. I go to my son for advice because I raised a good man. I know how I raised him, so I value his opinion. So I'll throw things out there and get his opinion on things, and I know that makes him feel good as a man, because I like when my dad will call me and say, hey, this is going on, what about this? If there's something that I know about that he doesn't know about, he'll ask, and then he'll do what I suggest you do this. So I think that's a big deal for a man, a father, to see his son or daughter as an adult.
So as you get older, and as you get to the age where you're on that front porch in the rocking chair,
right,
is that the same, or is there a different lesson that you want to make sure that if my kids don't learn anything else from me, like if they add all the lessons, all the teaching, all the everything, if they don't get but this one thing from me, what was that one thing?
The same thing. I want the same thing, that I did a good job. That they're like, wow, like if they're doing your eulogy, my dad was a great man, which I would say about my father, that he's just the most important man in my life. And he made this. My parents did, but he made this. And my son told me that. And it was touching when he was in college. He graduated. He goes, Dad, you did this. I was like, oh man. To hear that as a parent.
Oh, that's good. Nothing wrong.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that.
Oh man, that's a tough one, man. Because there's so many different things that they can learn from me that, and if it resonates in their minds in the older age, and I'll be happy with that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And if that was a positive influence on them, and that was something that they can fall back on growing up in life, then it wouldn't matter what it is as long as it was positive.
I watch a lot of movies, so I relate a lot to movies and different roles that fathers play in certain movies. And that's the kind of man that I would want to be. To just always be there for my family, take care of them, never abandon them, and just be the man that my kids want to look up to.
That I'm hoping that they would remember just to be compassionate to people, and to just be honorable, just be respectful, and by me being a God-fearing person, to stay close to Christ and just keep their values instilled. That's what I'm hoping they remember.
God will teach you everything you need to know about everything. That even when I'm wrong, even when I'm emotionally compromised, or I don't make the right decisions, or, because I'm learning this as a father, this is my first time having kids. So a lot of your first, they're my first too, that even when I make mistakes, or even know that the teachings that I'm teaching you that are not my words are the right ones, that you can find everything you need in the Bible, in Jesus Christ, that even if I'm wrong, he's right.
Well, when I'm ready, I want to let him know I got this. I can handle this. I can handle the family responsibilities that he has, so he has nothing to worry about. I can take over. I can show the rest of the family how much of a man I become because of him.
I think the only thing that I would want my dad to know is that I love him, obviously. I don't think we say that enough. At least I don't say that enough to him. So I at least want that one thing to be the one lasting memory he has, that his son loves him. Outside of that, it's just that everything I am today is because of all that he done for me throughout my life.
What I'd like to instill, and if and when I have kids of my own, would be that principle, which is when I'm with you, when I'm present, it's awesome. And even when I'm not with you, I'm thinking about you and I'm doing things in my life for you.
Just the fact that as a father, you have somebody that you can depend on and come to in those certain times of need, not necessarily just as far as money or financial, but even just day-to-day life, day-to-day struggles, day-to-day information, stuff like that. Because, overall, again, me not having one, I think that's probably the biggest thing that I did miss, was that day-to-day connection and relationship.
I really value that my father instilled in me to learn. He really made emphasis on education, and he made emphasis on learning and striving from the cradle to the grave. So, part of my my academic pursuits have been long-standing in that regards as what my father has instilled in me. And so I would say from that, I want my father to know I really appreciate his support in my endeavors to pursue knowledge and education.
I hope that they know how much I love them. I think they do. It's my responsibility to love and guide them and leave things in a better situation for them. When I took on this fatherhood position, that's my legacy. Nothing else I leave behind matters. Just these people. That's the true nature of who I am. That's how you knew I was here.
Work hard and live in the moment, because it's those moments that are going to count, and it's those moments that's going to build extra other moments that's going to potentially change your life. So don't overlook things, live in the moment, and don't settle for anything less than what you think you're worth. There's nothing else I can actually teach my kids.
you.